Chapter 271. I have a way to deal with him. Mo Hilling's heart froze with his words. Her eyes shifted. Mo Hilling naturally wouldn't admit that Gu Jingze never loved her. Gu Jingze must have loved her. Otherwise, how else could she be his only woman all those years? Why else didn't he interact with other women? Gu Jingze was not the kind of person he thought he was. Not every man was the same. Humph, you're lying. I don't believe you. Li Mingyu grunted. Anyway, when a man and a woman are together and he can still cover her up and chat with her, then he absolutely has no feelings for her. Just like you and I, you see, I'm always thinking about sleeping with you. This proves that I like you. Get lost. Not everybody is as wretched as you. Mo Hilling would never believe his words anyway. Li Mingyu said, yes, I'm wretched, but it's because I like you. Why don't you give up? I can see that Lin Che looks like a little vixen. I'm afraid that Gu Jingze won't come back to you. Mo Hilling heard this and got even angrier. He actually still thought that Lin Che was pretty. You, Li Mingyu, get out of my sight. Hey, I messed up. I shouldn't have said that. He quickly changed his words. A wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. He hugged Mo Hilling and said, you're the most beautiful woman. Lin Che just looks like a little vixen while you're the elegant one. You can't be compared to that kind of girl. Mo Hilling stared fiercely at Li Mingyu. I won't let Lin Che live peacefully. Gu Jingze is mine and he still loves me. He's only being enchanted by Lin Che for the time being. One day, he'll come to realize that I'm the good one. Until then, you have to help me. Why should I help you? What a joke. Your split with him is advantageous to me, Li Mingyu said. Mo Hilling said, I promise you that as long as you help me get Gu Jingze, you'll be able to sleep with me. Otherwise, you can forget about it. Humph. Li Mingyu's mind turned. He looked at Mo Hilling. Really? You're not lying to me, are you? Why would I lie to you? I saved my first time for so long only to give it to Gu Jingze. If you can help me fulfill my wish, I'll satisfy you. It's because I have this wish, that's why I can't touch anyone else. However, I've kept it for so long and I'm not willing to just give it away so easily. That is why if you help me fulfill my wish, I'll be able to give you what you want. Li Mingyu didn't care about the wish. Hearing her say that, he smiled and said, fine, I'll help you. Tell me, how can I help? I was with Gu Jingze for so long and he loved me madly. Of course, he never hid any secrets from me. I know many secrets about the Gu family. What secrets? The Gu family stored Gu Jingze's sperm in the Gu family's sperm bank just in case anything happened to him and there wouldn't be any successors. If you help me get it, I can have Gu Jingze's child. Then, the Gu family will definitely not allow their own bloodline to fall outside. Gu Jingze will have to divorce Lin Che and be with me. Mo Hilling knew that Gu Jingze kept his sperm, but it wasn't kept by the Gu family. Gu Jingze did it himself when he was with her. He was worried that he wouldn't be able to touch her, so he specifically stored his sperm hoping that they would be able to have a child through artificial insemination after their marriage. That way, the Gu family wouldn't put her in a spot. Gu Jingze loved her so much and yet Li Mingyu didn't think that he did. Humph, what did he know? Gu Jingze was a great man. It was only because of his illness that he couldn't touch her. Otherwise, he would have been hers a long time ago and not with that little slut Lin Che. How could he really love that little slut Lin Che? Li Mingyu asked. Gu Jingze actually stored his sperm. Really? Okay then, I'll help you. But you must remember that you have to serve me well. The thought of sleeping with Gu Jingze's woman made him look forward. If Mo Hilling married Gu Jingze, he would then tell Gu Jingze that he slept with Mo Hilling. Gu Jingze would definitely be hopping mad. By that time, he would finally avenge the Li family for all that Gu Jingze had done to them. Li Mingyu would never forget how Gu Jingze used his power to suppress the Li family when they had a falling out. A gentleman's revenge was never too late. Gu Jingze, just you wait and see. In the morning, Lin Che was woken up by the sunlight. When she woke up, she felt that the person beside her was already awake. She froze and turned her head. Gu Jingze was beside her, tilting his head and looking at Lin Che. He lay there on his side, his defined muscles elongated and stretched. The blanket only covered half of his body. That half-naked look almost made her nose bleed. However, she seemed to notice that Gu Jingze was looking closely at her. She covered her face and peeked through her fingers at Gu Jingze. Why are you staring at me so intently? I'm looking at how you have so much strength for a small person. You were sleeping so ungracefully and you kept rolling around. Lin Che blushed. She looked at Gu Jingze and said, Did I disturb your sleep? Gu Jingze replied, forget it, I'm used to it anyway. Why not sleep separately next time? I can't control myself either. How would I know what I'm doing in my sleep? You always sleep so late. If you can't sleep properly, then that's going to be bad. Gu Jingze frowned. Why would any newlywed couple sleep separately? But it's alright. I heard that exercise will help you sleep better. Let's do more bedtime exercises tomorrow. If you sweat more, you'll sleep better at night. His hand propped his head up as he whispered in her ear. What bedtime exercises? Didn't they do enough last night? She really thought that it was enough. Get lost. I still have work and you're always back so late. I'll be dead tired. She initially thought that he was a pure-minded person. She didn't expect him to be so energetic, wanting to do it every day and tire her out. It was the same last night. She was already sleeping but he suddenly crept up on her in the middle of the night. Gu Jingze said, are you blaming me? It's your fault for seducing me. Lin Che pouted in protest, who's seducing you? When we were sleeping at night, who was the one flailing on me? He asked. Lin Che was speechless. I flail everywhere when I'm sleeping. Don't tell me that you'll be aroused by anyone flailing on you. You're so wild on the inside. How strange. You were with Mo Hilling for so many years. How did you manage to control yourself? You must have controlled yourself until you damaged your kidneys. Chapter 272, Mr. President, please let me go. Gu Jingze froze and looked at Lin Che. Lin Che blurted out without thinking and she was starting to regret it. Why did she have to bring up Mo Hilling right now? However, Gu Jingze thought seriously and said to Lin Che, actually, I never thought of wanting to do anything with Hilling when I was with her. I even felt weird holding her hand. The most we did was just give each other pecks a few times. She was usually the one who made a move but my illness would act up seriously. Gu Jingze said strangely, I don't think I've ever had any feelings for her and I never wanted to do anything to her. When I was with her, I always thought that even if I couldn't touch her for the rest of my life, it was alright. I never had the desire to have her. Lin Che tilted her head and looked at Gu Jingze, so you're saying that? Towards her, you never had that kind of feeling. That's right. I'm also puzzled but I just never had that kind of feeling. After knowing that Mo Hilling and Gu Jingze's closest distance was only holding hands and kissing despite all their years together, she felt a lot more at ease. Gu Jingze continued, but I don't know why I just want to strip you quickly every time I see you. I don't want to waste any time and have you to myself. Lin Che said, hey, that's your own problem, isn't it? It's your fault for being so lustful. One is judged by the company one keeps. I've never been like this in the past. I only became so lustful after being with you. Thus, this is all your fault. Gu Jingze looked at Lin Che all wrapped up. The lines of her collarbone were so obvious and there were still traces of their acts last night on her body. Gu Jingze immediately felt overwhelmed. He rolled over and pressed her below him once again. Lin Che quickly begged, no, Gu Jingze, what are you doing? Let go of me. I still need to go to work. You naturally have to put out the fire you started. I really can't, Gu Jingze. It's early in the morning. Haven't you got your fill last night? Gu Jingze also thought that it was strange but he simply couldn't control himself whenever he saw her. It was as if his body was no longer his. Had he really gone crazy from suppressing himself for all those years? Why was he so impulsive? Not enough. I haven't had my fill, little thing. I believe that I'll die in your hands one day. I'm going to be sucked dry and it will all be because of you, he said menacingly. He still thought that it was weird. He clearly hated this type but he kept getting himself into trouble every time. How did he get seduced by this little thing? Lin Che was held down by him. Although he looked so beautifully tempting, she really had important things to do. Lin Che quickly said, it hurts. You're hurting me. Gu Jingze looked at her suspiciously. He knew that he didn't use any strength at all, but he still couldn't help it. He stopped. Let me see. Where does it hurt? Sorry, I'll be more careful next time. Lin Che took the opportunity and hurriedly jumped out of the bed. I need to get to work. It's already so late. I have no excuse. Humph. Back in the dark room. Yu Minmin was locked up in here for the whole night. She felt the door open. In her half-awake state, she heard the noise and immediately stood up. Gu Jingming walked in and saw Yu Minmin getting up. Her clothes were crumpled, but those pair of eyes still looked at him cautiously. He walked in, not expecting that she would still be so stubborn after a whole night. Tell me, what is your motive? He asked. Having been shut in for the entire night, Yu Minmin only felt powerless. She was also naturally angry. She looked at Gu Jingming and thought about how everyone else would feel a huge sense of honor to come face to face with Mr. President. She thought that this was the unluckiest thing to ever happen to her in her life. She was just living her own life, but he agitated her for no reason. She was even assumed to be sly and cunning. She had really never met such a high and mighty man. Yu Minmin gritted her teeth and looked up at Gu Jingming. Enough, Mr. President. That's right, I wanted to get close to you with ill intentions. Is that enough for a confession? I have a secret motive and I want to threaten the status of the high and mighty Mr. President. That's why I wanted to get close to you. I gave my first time and landed myself in this state. I was only here to deliver something and I still had to be locked up for a whole night and be ridiculed by you. Gu Jingming's face changed. Yu Minmin glared at Gu Jingming. That's right, we are all small subjects. The well-being of normal people is not as important as the well-being of our president. I was born in the slums to a gambling father and a weak mother. I still need to take care of my brother. I can't compare with someone who is so respected by people and can influence a nation with every move. I'm not that important, but I'm still human. You're always so suspicious of me and locking me up with no evidence. You. What right do you have? Yu Minmin looked at the closed door and knew that there were people outside. She gazed at Gu Jingming. Let me out. Gu Jingming's lips were sealed as he stood there in silence. Yu Minmin stared at him forcefully and dashed forward without a care. Although she was tiny, she had a temper. Although she was small, she wasn't going to be bullied like this. Gu Jingming frowned. He turned around and grabbed Yu Minmin's hand. Yu Minmin flared up and raised her hand. She hit Gu Jingming across his face. A loud smack. Gu Jingming and Yu Minmin stood there in shock. Yu Minmin panicked. She looked at Gu Jingming and couldn't believe what she had just done. She actually hit C Nation's president. C Nation's Mr. President who had millions of fans. Gu Jingming's fair face had a red mark. This woman. Gu Jingming held Yu Minmin up. Yu Minmin's collar was clenched up, making her stand on tiptoes. You, let me go, you. Just then, the people outside seemed to have heard the commotion. A line of armed guards opened the door and rushed into the room. Yu Minmin was extremely scared. She looked at the pitch-black guns and froze, thinking about how she just slapped the president. If some of them shot her right now, it would have been logical. However, Gu Jingming's cold face turned back and his expression changed slightly. He chided the people angrily. Who said that you can come in? The people who entered all froze as they watched Yu Minmin and Mr. President. What was the president doing? He was holding up a small woman with his bare hands. What was the meaning of this? And on Mr. President's face. Chapter 273. Something cropped up when Lin Che was at the Lin house. Mr. President. Mr. President. Get out. Gu Jingming let go of Yu Minmin. Yu Minmin fell on the floor. She looked at Gu Jingming and felt regretful for her actions, especially when she saw the red mark on Gu Jingming's face. But she was still angry, so she didn't care. I apologize, Mr. President. I won't appear in front of you ever again. I hope that the water from the river will never interfere with the well water. As she spoke, she looked at Gu Jingming regretfully. She turned around and walked out under the puzzled eyes of the guards. Gu Jingming's eyes moved and he regained his composure. Linda spoke at the side. Sir, about this. Gu Jingming turned around. Keep an eye on her and report to me if there is any news. Yes, sir. Linda quickly retreated after seeing the red mark on Gu Jingming's face. That woman just now, she was so daring. If she was really a spy, she was really gambling with her own life. Otherwise, the president pursued a crime against the head of state. She would have been thrown into prison right away. Lin Che went straight to the company from the Gu house, but Yu Minmin had suddenly taken the day off and wasn't there. Lin Che quickly called Yu Minmin, saying that she didn't go to the Gu family's banquet last night and wasn't here either. She asked her what was going on, but Yu Minmin insisted that she was fine and something cropped up at home. She apologized for yesterday. Knowing that her family had plenty of problems, Lin Che quickly told her to not bother about herself and settle her own affairs at home. After that, Lin Che wanted to visit Granny and could only bring Yang Lingxin along to the villa. However, when they arrived at the villa, they discovered that Granny wasn't there. Lin Che tugged the maid and asked, "Where's my Granny?" I don't know. Madam only suddenly said that she wanted to go to the Lin family to ask about her daughter, Sashi. The Lin family. Lin Che did not feel safe at all. She quickly called for a car and rushed to the Lin house. She reached the Lin house very soon. At the entrance, she saw Han Kaiying shouting at Granny, "Your daughter is a vixen and you still dare to seek justice in my house. Let me tell you, I was already nice enough to let her give birth to her daughter. She wouldn't interfere in our affairs and you dare to come and look for me. I must ask, how did you raise your daughter to become somebody's mistress?" At the side, Lin Yukai quickly tugged Han Kaiying. He looked at Granny and frowned unbearably. "Enough, she's already gone. Don't talk about all this anymore." Granny stood there in disbelief. "No, my daughter wouldn't do this. I know my own daughter. She must have her reasons. Otherwise, she must have been cheated by you. I want to know why my daughter died. Can you give me an answer?" "You can't." Lin Che hurried over. "Granny." Turning around, they froze when they saw Lin Che heading towards them. Lin Che quickly hid Granny behind her. She looked fiercely at the few people in front of her. Han Kaiying, Lin Li, Lin Yukai and Lin Yu. The entire family was there. How rare. "What are you guys doing? So many of you bullying one old lady. What's the meaning of this?" Lin Che asked strictly. Han Kaiying laughed. "Lin Che, be clear about who is bullying whom. She came here on her own, we didn't look for her. Also, every word I spoke was the truth. Your mother was a mistress. We raised you and you turned out to be like her. You're not only unfilial towards us. You even keep going against us." "Stepmother, my mother is not a mistress. I'm sure that my father is clearer about this than anyone else." She looked at Lin Yukai. "Say it. Say that my mother was not a mistress. She didn't even know you had a family. Isn't that right?" Lin Yukai was at a loss for words. He looked at Han Kaiying and dared not to say anything. "Lin Che, that was years ago. You guys don't talk about it anymore." Han Kaiying said, "Lin Che, I haven't settled scores with you for being so ungrateful. However, you still dare to let your grandmother come here." Lin Li's engagement with Qin Qing was cancelled. Apparently, this has nothing to do with you. Lin Che looked at Han Kaiying incredulously. "This has nothing to do with me in the first place. Do you want to blame me for Lin Li's own relationship too? Ha, you carried a torch for Qin Qing for so many years. Do you think nobody knows about it? If it wasn't because of your scheming ways, why would Qin Qing leave Lin Li? Humph, hooking Qin Qing on one side while acting as someone else's slut on the other. Seriously, like mother like daughter." Lin Che's face changed. "I have absolutely never interfered in Qin Qing and Lin Li's relationship. As for my own personal life, it's none of your business." Han Kaiying laughed coldly. She said to Granny, "You must have no idea. Your granddaughter is exactly like your daughter. She became someone's lover for money and is using unscrupulous methods to become famous." Granny looked up hesitantly. Lin Che said, "Granny, I'll explain it to you later." Han Kaiying scoffed. "Explain. There is nothing to explain." From behind, Yang Lingxin had followed her. She had no clue what was going on, so she stood there and watched without moving. Lin Li was already feeling depressed. Her limelight was snatched away. She obviously entered the entertainment industry first, but Lin Che was now the more famous one. Until now, she was still playing supporting roles while Lin Che was already taking on lead roles. Lin Li said. Lin Che, aren't you playing lead roles now? That's enough, let it go. Don't keep clinging on to Gu Jingze, okay. He'll marry a woman of equal status sooner or later. What's the point in behaving like this? You're embarrassing our Lin family. Lin Che looked at Lin Li. What has this got to do with you? Lin Li scoffed. Why? Are you afraid that you can't continue being famous without Gu Jingze? Why not rely on your own abilities? What's the point of relying on a man? Lin Li didn't believe that she would become famous on her own. Would she be so popular without Gu Jingze? Impossible, humph. She was merely an errand girl and now, she was participating in the Panda TV festival. Lin Li felt angrier at the thought of it. What nonsense are you talking about? Jingze is Lin Che's husband. Granny couldn't bear to witness Lin Che getting insulted. She spoke up angrily. The Lin family looked at each other and burst out laughing. Enough. Do you know what status Gu Jingze has? You old hag. Lin Che is lying to you and you are believing her. Humph. Granny continued persistently. I believe my granddaughter and I believe my daughter. They are both good people and they're not bad to the core like you guys. If you guys can't tell me about my daughter, I won't let you off. The Lin family heard this and laughed even louder. Old lady, you're just an old woman from the village. Do you dare to fight the Lin family? Chapter 274. My woman can do whatever she wants. Just then, they saw a line of cars behind suddenly appear in this high-end community. They were stunned. Lin Che stood with Granny and Yang Lingxin while the Lin family and their maids were all present. They watched the cars slowly stop in front of them. After that, the Gu family's bodyguards stepped out one by one. Finally, a bodyguard opened the car door and that remarkable man appeared like a bright moon among the stars. His usual cold expression and arrogance could not be ignored. Gu Jingze should have been at work. Why did he suddenly come here now? Lin Che's eyes lit up as she watched Gu Jingze walk towards her. Meanwhile, the Lin family's expression changed. Yang Lingxin quickly said, President Gu, you're here. She stepped forward but a bodyguard blocked her from getting closer. Yang Lingxin could only say from the outside, Sister Che, she. Gu Jingze's lips remained tight as he looked at the situation. He immediately stood beside Lin Che. Lin Che looked up. Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze only nodded at her and then looked at the group of people across them. Han Kaiying looked at the entourage behind. Although she knew that the Gu family was formidable, she didn't expect so many bodyguards. What was going on? For a moment, she felt guilty. Lin Yukai quickly stepped forward, his eyes shining. From behind, Lin Li shivered in fear and looked at Lin Che angrily. She was extremely jealous. Lin Yu already ran away. She dared not to meet Gu Jingze. Han Kaiying was slightly fearful but she was still angry. President Gu, you didn't look after Lin Che properly and she came here to cause a nuisance. What's the meaning of this? We weren't provoking her. Gu Jingze grunted coldly at the person in front of him. My woman can do whatever she wants. Why must I look after her? Han Kaiying didn't expect Gu Jingze to be so protective and understanding towards Lin Che. Lin Yukai quickly said, yes. We didn't bother her, but she is my daughter after all. Since she's here, does President Gu want to come in for tea? Han Kaiying looked at this useless Lin Yukai and got even angrier. She lifted her leg and stomped on Lin Yukai's foot. Gu Jingze ridiculed Lin Yu at that time. Thinking about that made Han Kaiying even angrier. She said, really, your woman can do whatever she wants. Then, I don't know if you're aware that Lin Che had been flirting with Qin Qing. She even sabotaged Qin Qing and Lin Li's relationship, making their engagement fall through. You may not care about anything, but are you going to let this slip too? Lin Che's eyes shifted. Please talk with more evidence. Ha, are you afraid that I'll ruin your hold on Gu Jingze? Han Kaiying scoffed and said. Han Kaiying thought that Lin Che was afraid, so she continued, President Gu, this little brat Lin Che carried a torch for Qin Qing since she was young. They always snuck around behind our backs. Don't be fooled into thinking that she's as pure as she looks. You'll really get cheated. Gu Jingze's eyes narrowed and his expression changed. The man behind reached out and slapped Han Kaiying's face. It was so quick that nobody could react in time. Gu Jingze's men were ruthless in hitting others. The corner of Han Kaiying's mouth began to bleed. She looked up in disbelief at the man in front of her. You hit me. Another slap hit across her face. Han Kaiying's right cheek immediately swelled up. She began to cry incredulously. Lin Yukai's eyes moved and immediately held Han Kaiying back. Gu Jingze looked indifferently at the woman, apologized to Lin Che. With tears in her eyes, Han Kaiying was less than willing. Why should I apologize? You insulted Lin Che. If you don't apologize, do you think you'll be able to get out of here in peace? Han Kaiying was flustered. Gu Jingze, don't go overboard. Even if you have money and power, you are not infallible. I will sue you for hitting me. Lin Yukai tugged her, but Han Kaiying could not be held back now. Gu Jingze's lips curled up slightly. He smiled coldly. Indeed, nobody can reel me in here. Apologize or the Lin family will leave C Nation. You can choose now. Lin Yukai pulled Han Kaiying back in fear. Mr. Gu, you are a magnanimous person. She's only a housewife and doesn't know anything. She only knows how to spout nonsense. Han Kaiying was so angry that she lost all reasoning. Someone hit her, and not only did Lin Yukai fail to speak up for her, he even humbled himself. You, Lin Yukai, why are you such a coward? Lin Yukai wanted to strangle this woman. Shut up. He lowered his voice and whispered into Han Kaiying's ear, who do you think Gu Jingze is? He is practically God in C Nation. Do you really think that there's nothing he wouldn't dare to do? If you want to die, don't drag me down with you. You, Lin Yukai, do you still want to live? You might as well go live with that little slut Lin Che and live with her. How can you do this to me? Han Kaiying's swollen face burst into tears. Lin Yukai looked at Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze only tilted his head slightly. His eyes were slightly narrowed and his gaze was so cold that it could freeze a person's heart. Lin Yukai gritted his teeth and said to Han Kaiying angrily, you slut. Why are you always causing trouble for the family, acting so horribly to Lin Che? You're a woman who doesn't have any morals at all. Lin Che is my daughter, but you don't even have a hint of pity for her. You're always making things difficult for her. Hearing Lin Yukai talk about her, Han Kaiying couldn't believe it. Was he treating her like this because Gu Jingze was there? Was Gu Jingze really that intimidating? Han Kaiying stood there, still in disbelief. However, Lin Yukai's eyes were moving. He looked at Gu Jingze and then at Han Kaiying. He finally spoke, you'll pack up today and get out of the Lin house. I want to divorce you. In the future, you're no longer a member of the Lin family and you're not my wife. Lin Yukai didn't want to make things so grave either. But looking at Gu Jingze, he absolutely did not dare to be burdened by Han Kaiying and let her drag the Lin family down. Han Kaiying was stunned. Lin Che also didn't expect it. She looked at Lin Yukai in shock. Meanwhile, Lin Li couldn't accept it. She angrily stood out. Dad, what are you doing? Lin Yukai pushed Lin Li away. What? Do you want to be chased out of the Lin household with your mom? Lin Li shook in fear. She looked up at Gu Jingze's cold eyes and felt her whole body shiver. Chapter 275. He was that formidable to begin with. Gu Jingze's eyes only swept across them. He couldn't be bothered to take a good look. Lin Che also didn't expect her father to be this decisive. Lin Yukai looked at Han Kaiying and thought that her father might have only been intimidating her. However, Lin Yukai humbled himself so much in front of Lin Che and that made Lin Li unhappy. She stepped back to the side and looked at Han Kaiying's frozen features. Han Kaiying was looking at Lin Yukai. She angrily said, I don't want to divorce. I sacrificed so much for your household all these years and now you want to toss me aside. I will not divorce. Lin Yukai was also in a spot. He looked at Han Kaiying and ruthlessly ordered the maids behind, what are you guys still looking at? Go and pack up all of this slut's belongings and throw them out. The maids were frightened and quickly went to pack up. Han Kaiying was really afraid now. She hastily clamored and begged him. Lin Yukai pushed Han Kaiying away and said to Lin Li, what are you still looking at? Take all your mother's things away. Lin Li did not dare to hesitate. She quickly helped Han Kaiying up and dragged her away. Han Kaiying kept looking back with every step, not daring to be rash. Lin Yukai watched her leave, then hastily said to Gu Jingze, President Gu, I hope you don't mind. This woman's mouth is too filthy and those were not my intentions at all. Lin Che is my daughter. I will always treat her well. Ultimately, everything in the past was because of my wife. I've always tolerated her, but this time, she has gone overboard. I definitely won't forgive her for talking about Lin Che that way. Gu Jingze didn't mind his words. He only looked ahead without any expression. I don't want to care about your family affairs. It's no big deal to me even if she comes back to your house after a few days. Although Gu Jingze said that, how would he dare to bring Han Kaiying back when he spoke with that cool tone? He quickly said, impossible, impossible. When I chase her out, it's for good. This filthy woman will have nothing to do with my Lin family in the future. Gu Jingze ignored him and turned to Lin Che and Granny, what are you doing here? Lin Yukai heard this and immediately interrupted them, right. You wanted to know Lin Che's mother's cause of death. Well, I still have the hospital records from that year. Lin Yukai sent someone to fetch the records. Very quickly, a maid brought a box over. Granny looked at it. She trembled as she took it and opened the box. Lin Yukai sighed and said, Lin Che's mother was gentle and wise. She was a good woman, but heaven was jealous. After she gave birth to Lin Che, her bones broke. After that, she held on painfully for over 10 years. Eventually, she couldn't hold on any longer. Yes, Lin Che still remembered that year. Her mother's body wasn't in a good condition and the Lin family kept agitating her. There was no way that she could have recovered properly. It was too late to pursue this matter now. However, receiving these documents and finding out the cause of her daughter's death put her heart at ease. Gu Jingze finally looked at Lin Yukai, who courteously bowed and sent them out. Gu Jingze brought Lin Che and Granny away from that place. Yang Lingxin watched from behind and quickly caught up to them. She looked at the row of bodyguards in black and was amazed at how professional they looked. She stared at them and then picked up her pace. However, she naturally wasn't allowed into Gu Jingze's car. She got into another car and went along with them. Lin Yukai watched the whole group leave noisily. He finally let out a sigh of relief. Back inside, Han Kaiying still refused to leave. I'm not leaving and that's that. Lin Yukai, I've been with you for so many years. You can't simply treat me like this because you're afraid of something. What is Gu Jingze to you? He just has a little money. Why are you so afraid of them? Lin Li also looked at Lin Yukai from the side and said, Dad, isn't it too much to chase Mom out? Why are you letting Lin Che win like this? Humph. Lin Yukai looked at the mother and daughter and pointed at them, you two still dare to talk. I already told you before to grow some brains. But you two never listened. How can our family compare with Gu Jingze? Han Kaiying said, that slut Lin Che is just a mistress of Gu Jingze. He'll get sick of her one day. What are you so afraid of? Gu Jingze will marry a woman of equal status eventually. No matter what happens in the future, Gu Jingze is her support right now. Not a single one of you know how ruthless this Gu Jingze can be. Do you really think he's some saint? You still dare to talk about reeling him in? With his power, there is nobody that can reel him in. Then what about us? Han Kaiying looked at Lin Yukai and asked. Lin Yukai said, since I've already said to get a divorce, you'll sign the papers. He would never dare to lie to Gu Jingze. What right do you have? I won't sign it, not even over my dead body. Lin Yukai grunted, you're not signing. Does that mean that when the Lin family has nothing left, you will go out on the streets as a beggar? You're lucky now that you are Lin Li's mother. I can still let you live with some money. When the Lin family is left with nothing, you'll wait to be a beggar on the streets. Han Kaiying sat there, crying and weeping. She really hated that Lin Che to death. Gu Jingze brought Lin Che and Granny back to Granny's villa. Granny listened to Lin Che read out the diagnosis from the documents. Her mother's body was indeed too weak and the treatment standards at that time were not suitable. Thus, she gradually lost the ability to hold on to her life. Granny nodded and sighed. She said, this is her fate. Oh well, at least she's at peace now since she sees that you're living well now. Granny said that she had stayed here long enough and was prepared to go home. Lin Che naturally couldn't bear for her to leave. Granny told her that she could visit her if she had the time. Although they didn't have everything like a big city, there were mountains and rivers and the air was fresh. Lin Che recalled that Gu Jingze said that he would arrange for people to look after Granny. Furthermore, Granny didn't know anybody else here except her. No matter how good the bee city was, she would definitely get bored. Thus, she agreed and helped arrange a flight back for her. Gu Jingze instructed his men to settle some matters. Yang Lingxin helped look after Granny the whole time. Yang Lingxin looked at Lin Che and said, "President Gu was so cool today." He instantly brushed off those people. Lin Che replied, "Yeah. I didn't expect my father to actually demand to divorce just like that. I didn't know that he was that scared of Gu Jingze." "President Gu is nice to you, Sister Che. Of course, you're not scared of him. Everybody else is." Lin Che thought about it. When he wasn't good to her, she was never afraid of him either. Now that she thought about it, she really was very daring. Chapter 276. Gu Jingze really doted on her more. Or perhaps others were simply too afraid of him, which made them that he was scary. They didn't know that Gu Jingze was actually a man of principles. He was a caring and very good man. Anyway, no matter how others thought of Gu Jingze, Lin Che believed that Gu Jingze was not that scary at all. He was such a proper man, how could he be bad? Yang Lingxin obediently said, "I'll go see if Granny needs anything." Lin Che felt comforted that Yang Lingxin was so diligent. Poverty was not something to be afraid of. As long as a person was serious and willing to put in the effort, one would definitely reap rewards. Yang Lingxin helped Granny pack her clothes and boil soup. She kept thinking about what happened at the Lin family the previous day. It turned out that the Lin family wasn't that good. It turned out that her mother was a third party and she was an illegitimate child. It turned out that her family was full of problems and her status was extremely complicated. The family members were so mean and they weren't innocent. When Gu Jingze was done, he came back to see Lin Che watching TV. As Granny was old, she had already gone to bed. Yang Lingxin accompanied Lin Che beside her. Seeing Gu Jingze return, Yang Lingxin stood up. Gu Jingze walked over. Looking at Lin Che, he smiled and touched her shoulder. Lin Che looked up. "How is it? Have you already booked the flight ticket?" "I arranged the family jet to go over. An old lady shouldn't take commercial flights." Lin Che was grateful for his care. She said to him, "Thank you for specifically arranging the Gu family's private jet to send my granny." "Silly, your granny is my granny too. But it's still troublesome. If you're really thankful, then just be good and stay by my side." He tapped the tip of her nose. Lin Che rubbed her nose. "How am I not good?" "In every aspect, except when you're in bed. You immediately turn good there." "Go to hell." Lin Che reached out and pinched him. Gu Jingze winced in pain. "You dare to move a muscle on me after claiming that you're good? Are you trying to flip the roof just because you haven't been disciplined for 3 days? It's your fault for playing as a gangster all the time." "Ha, that just shows how energetic I am. If I no longer have the energy to play gangster one day, you'll end up crying in some corner." Lin Che thought, who knew if there would be such a day? By then, he might be already sick of her body. His illness would be cured and he'd demand a divorce. Lin Che wanted to continue pinching him but Gu Jingze already held her down. Just then, she remembered that someone was still watching. Lin Che looked up and saw Yang Lingxin still standing there. She quickly pushed Gu Jingze and hinted at him to control himself. Gu Jingze turned to look and then got up with some disappointment. He said to Lin Che, "Let Granny rest. We'll go back." "Okay," Lin Che replied. Seeing Yang Lingxin still behind them, Lin Che said, "Well, it's getting late. We'll take you home." Yang Lingxin said, "You guys go ahead. I'll take the train." "Never mind. It's not safe for a girl to take the train this late at night. We'll take you back. It's not that far anyway," Lin Che replied. Yang Lingxin heard this and looked hesitantly at Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze nodded and said, "Let's go together." Yang Lingxin then smiled, "Thanks, President Gu. Thanks, Sister Che." In Gu Jingze's car, Lin Che and Gu Jingze sat at the back while Yang Lingxin sat in front. The two of them quickly sent Yang Lingxin to a very old and small district. Yang Lingxin said, "My home is just here. It's too old and broken, so President Gu's car better not go in. I can walk in myself. Otherwise, the car might get ruined going in. Lin Che looked inside. It was indeed rather small and she estimated that it would be hard for the car to come out, so she nodded, okay then. Yang Lingxin said goodbye and got out of the car. She went inside skipping. Watching her leave, Gu Jingze asked, is she at your side as an assistant now? Lin Che nodded, yes, and she's very nimble. Sister Yu said that she may be young but she's much more nimble than those other assistants. She can handle many things by herself and she's someone worth nurturing. Gu Jingze only looked inside. He nodded and said, why isn't Yu Minmin with you today? Something cropped up at home so she took the day off. Okay, it's better to be with Yu Minmin more. Don't get too close to others. Oh, okay, Lin Che thought, was there anything wrong with other people? However, she never really interacted much with others anyway. She only told Yu Minmin about some things that she never told anyone else. She still trusted Yu Minmin more. Lin Che said, do you think that my dad will really divorce stepmother? What about it? Nothing, I just feel that it's quite impossible. Relax, he won't dare to not divorce. Why? Gu Jingze looked at Lin Che, you won't understand with your intelligence. Forget it, you can stop thinking about it. Quote. Lin Che couldn't understand why they had to be so afraid of him. Gu Jingze knew that Lin Che didn't know what his name meant to C Nation and outsiders. Also, he didn't want her to know. This way, he could remain simply as Gu Jingze in her eyes. Her only gripe with him was that his temper was quick, he was too clean, and he had too many problems. Other than that, he wasn't that different from any other person. Perhaps it was also because he had always been simply Gu Jingze in her eyes. She would never know what kind of person he was in other people's eyes. She would never know the horrifying things that he had done outside. Gu Jingze said, all right, we'll talk when we get home. Yes, let's go home. The information about Lin Che and Gu Jingyu's movie was quickly leaked. At the start of Gu Jingyu's movie filming, they naturally held a press conference. Gu Jingyu personally attended it and announced the cast list. This fantasy movie was titled, Captor Fairy. The main actors were Gu Jingyu, Lin Che, Shin Xiaoyuan, and the newcomer Li Junyi. Other names mentioned were also famous. Lin Che didn't expect Shin Xiaoyuan to take part in the movie too. Although she had been popular for many years, her fame couldn't match with Mu Feiren's. However, she was famous and she had countless fans. Lin Che was going to act with her and she was the first female lead. Lin Che was a little afraid and worried that Shin Xiaoyuan might not be happy and cause trouble. Yu Minmin comforted Lin Che, don't worry. You're the first female lead because the director feels that your character matches the role and the company let her audition for the second female lead right from the beginning. She's going to play as a cougar dating Li Junyi's character while you're going to play Gu Jingyu's rival. Your roles are of entirely different nature and there's nothing she can say about it. If she gets angry, she can go talk to the director. To generate hype for the movie, the team recommended a few of the stars to participate in a reality show. Gu Jingyu naturally wouldn't have taken part in a reality show. Also, he really didn't even need to in order to maintain his popularity. Where there was Gu Jingyu, there was no need for promotions. Thus, the participants were the remaining stars. The reality show was called, I Am Going to School, and the few actors were to be integrated into one of B City's high school. They were to experience student life, accommodation and learning all in this school. The show would be filmed over a week, so this meant that they would stay at the school for the entire time. Chapter 277, sent her off to filming and couldn't bear to part. The last time Lin Che took part in a reality show, she was only a guest. This was the first time that she was participating as a proper member. GU residence. Lin Che's luggage was already packed and placed in the living room. Gu Jingze looked at Lin Che's neat outfit and instructed her, be careful. If anything happens, remember to call me. Lin Che nodded. She felt nervous thinking about having to stay there for a week, especially knowing that she was going to film with so many people. She was afraid that she would not perform well. After all, she lacked experience in this kind of filming. Do you have everything? He looked at the luggage and asked. Yeah, the maids helped me. The crew members will take care of me when I'm there, so I shouldn't have any problems, Lin Che said. Gu Jingze caressed her palm and looked at her petite face. Be good in school. You're not allowed to get too close to other guys. Remember that you're a woman with a husband. What? I'm a woman of morals, okay. When I promised that I wouldn't have any other man when I'm with you, I really wasn't going to. She still remembered clearly in their agreement. She claimed that she wouldn't do anything during their marriage to bring him shame. Of course, she wouldn't interact with other men either. Anyway, after being by Gu Jingze's side for so long, there really wasn't any man out there who could move her heart. When she looked at them, she thought that every man was childish and ugly. Nobody looked as good as Gu Jingze. Hearing Lin Che say that made Gu Jingze's eyebrows move a little. Lin Che, okay, I'm going. I'm still in B City anyway, so you can relax. Nothing is going to happen. Gu Jingze said, who knows if something will really happen, you troublesome sprite. He felt that as long as she was out of his sight, something might happen. He also felt that he was being draggy, but he couldn't help but worry about her safety. It was all this little woman's fault. She caused trouble way too easily. She was always such a blur and was so loud. If he didn't usually send more people to watch her, she would have been in trouble more times than this. She turned back, thinking about how she wasn't going to see him for a week. She couldn't bear it. She gazed deeply at Gu Jingze's tall and handsome stature. She stared hard and reluctantly released her hand. Just then, Gu Jingze suddenly grabbed her hand again. She sat on his lap and before she could react, his lips were already prying hers apart. His long tongue drilled in and he bit her lip passionately and forcefully exploring her mouth. Lin Che sat on him and squirmed uncomfortably. Rubbing against him and feeling his leg, her face blushed a bright red. It was hard to part, but they had to. He let go of her lips and looked at her delicate expression. He held her face, be good while I'm not by your side. Control yourself even if you can't take it and I'll make it up to you when you come back. But don't go flirting around with other guys. Who can't take it? Lin Che pushed against his chest. Do you think that everyone is really perverted like you? Gu Jingze laughed and said, I've been filling you up these past few days but you're going to sleep alone for the next few days. You might not stop thinking about it. Get lost. I have self-control, okay. That's because you were inexperienced last time. Now that you've been unraveled by me, do you think that you won't think about it? Only you will. Anyway, call me if you think about it. Lin Che blushed. She got up and took her luggage as she walked towards the door. Who's thinking of you? Humph, I won't think about you. Gu Jingze stood there as he watched Lin Che escape in a fluster. He shook his head helplessly. This worrisome brat. Thinking about how there were going to be some male actors living with her, he still felt worried. This woman had no idea how attractive she was. She was like a magnet that slowly drew in men. Even that pure-hearted idiot, Gu Jingze, grew appreciative of her. It was obvious that she had a large attracting power. Gu Jingze took a deep breath, but his heart still couldn't relax. The best high school in B City. The school's atmosphere was famous for being free. It was internationally renowned, the campus was big, the scenery was beautiful. It was an institution that had always been praised. It was class time and the school was bustling with people. The camera crew was already set up outside. When Lin Che came in with her luggage, a camera was already following her in. The minute she stepped through the school gates, a group of students surrounded her. Voices were exclaiming, Lin Che, Lin Che. Lin Che, I like you a lot. Lin Che, I watched all of your shows. Lin Che, I'm your fan. The crew quickly ushered them away. Lin Che smiled at everyone sheepishly and said, don't panic, kids. We are all going to be classmates over the next few days. Let's be courteous to each other and talk slowly. Everyone laughed as they watched Lin Che go in to report. Hello, I am Lin Che. Oh, Lin Che, go to year 2 class 3. Lin Che took her luggage and did the necessary procedures. Besides the crew, Lin Che's own company crew also followed behind her. They had to ensure that the filming ran smoothly in order to avoid trouble. The whole group of people walked forward with Lin Che, causing heads to turn. Some students exclaimed in amazement, "Wow, is that Lin Che?" Yeah, a big star is really something. She has so many people following her. Seeing her makes me want to be a star too. No way. So many people want to be a star, but only a few can become famous. Just take a look at how pretty Lin Che is. Just at that moment, another person exclaimed, "Wow, look! Xin Shaoyuan is here." Xin Shaoyuan was much grander than Lin Che. There were more than 10 people behind her, following her into the school. It was very apparent. Fans and students at the side screamed non-stop as she walked into the school wearing shades. In the hostel, Yang Lingxin was instructed to help Lin Che unpack. Yang Lingxin said, "Seriously, you still need to take part in some reality show when you're filming a movie." Lin Che said, "This is also a type of publicity. There'll be plenty of ads before, during, and after. We should accommodate in any way that we can." Right, that Xin Shaoyuan brought a lot of people with her just now. Sister Yu wanted me to come alone. If we knew sooner, we should have let little Dao and the rest come here to help Sister Che too. Lin Che said, "Actually, I can manage myself, but Sister Yu was just worried. It's not like I've never stayed in a school before." Chapter 278. This time she was definitely not giving in. "No way. You're a star now, Sister Che. Of course, it's going to be different from when you stayed in school last time. Look at Xin Shaoyuan's entourage." Lin Che heard this and she looked up at Yang Lingxin. "Little Xin, celebrities aren't some special people who need an entourage. I want to make a name for myself, manage by myself while also being admired and liked by people. Whether there is an entourage or not doesn't matter. All this is for others to see. It's okay to make people envious once in a while, but it's very annoying to be followed by so many people daily." Yang Lingxin listened to Lin Che. She looked at Lin Che with her huge eyes and laughed, "I got it, Sister Che. It's my bad. I shouldn't have thought that way. You did nothing wrong and I'm not lecturing you. I'm just telling you my opinion." Yes, I know. I just can't get used to seeing so many people following that Xin Shaoyuan." Just then, there was a commotion outside and not long after, they saw that Xin Shaoyuan was here. The entourage walked in too. The small dormitory was suddenly filled with people and it was especially irritating. Lin Che pulled Yang Lingxin to sit down and waited for Xin Shaoyuan to finish unpacking. Some of her assistants then left the place. There was finally some breathing space and Xin Shaoyuan looked up at Lin Che's seat. She paused and then gracefully stood up. Looking in Lin Che's direction, she said to the director, "I want that bed." The director froze as he looked at Lin Che. He said to Xin Shaoyuan, "Shaoyuan, the beds are all assigned. It's not good to suddenly request for a change." Xin Shaoyuan said, "The lighting there is good. I want that spot." The director looked at the two of them hesitantly, not knowing what to do. Xin Shaoyuan saw that the director was still looking at the two of them, hesitant in deciding. She laughed coldly, "Director, you know that I've been in this circle for years and this is the first time I'm taking part in a show like this. The committee already agreed to take good care of me. I also only came here for the sake of the movie's director fan. But what is the meaning of this now? Can't you let me change positions?" Xin Shaoyuan was not easy to please and people in the circle have heard about this. However, she already placed her belongings where she wanted and nobody dared to say anything. Xin Shaoyuan looked at Lin Che. Lin Che fidgeted and gazed back at Xin Shaoyuan. How could she not know that Xin Shaoyuan was intentionally picking on her? From their last meeting at the annual gathering, Xin Shaoyuan had always been picking on her but they had not met since then. This time, they ended up being in the same show. Xin Shaoyuan definitely was not going to let her off. Xin Shaoyuan looked up. There was no Gu Jingze here to protect her. Xin Shaoyuan wanted to see just what this Lin Che had up her sleeves. Lin Che looked up at Xin Shaoyuan, "Sister Shaoyuan, the cameras already filmed us in our positions just now. If you suddenly change positions, wouldn't the audience find that weird?" Xin Shaoyuan laughed, "Don't you have any common sense? They can cut that part out and they can do a retake. There are plenty of solutions." Lin Che sat there and did not budge. The crew does not have it easy then. Let's not trouble them. Ha, Lin Che, don't act like you care about others while I don't. I'm the one being filmed. Of course, my feelings are important. If I'm in a bad mood, the footage will turn out bad. Are you going to be responsible for that? Humph. I've been in this circle for years. I know more than a fledgling like you. You don't need to show your ignorance in front of me. Lin Che's eyes narrowed as she looked at Shin Xiaoyuan. Since Sister Xiaoyuan said that, then as a person being filmed, my emotions are very important too. If we swapped positions, my mood will be bad too. You, quote. Wasn't this what Sister Xiaoyuan just taught me? I'm learning from you, Lin Che said and raised a brow. Lin Che, who do you think you are? Do you dare to talk back to me? Your feelings. Do you really think that your feelings are important? Humph. Do you think you are at the same level as me now that you can film in, Captor Fairy? Ha, you entered the cast by relying on your relationship with Gu Jingze. You still dare to show off in front of me. The director watched as the two of them began quarreling the moment they entered. He was caught in the middle and didn't know what to do. Girls, please calm down. Lin Che, why don't you? Director, I may be a newcomer and should respect the elders according to traditions, but I don't want to swap positions. She got bullied by Shin Xiaoyuan just as she got here. If she gave in today, she was going to be bullied even more. Thus, Lin Che knew that she absolutely could not give in today. Otherwise, would she still be able to film the next 7 days? The director didn't expect Lin Che to be so brave. She dared to quarrel with Shin Xiaoyuan and even insult Shin Xiaoyuan. He was at a loss. You, Lin Che, you dare. Lin Che looked up. What? What does Sister Xiaoyuan want to do? Are you going to quit the show in your moment of anger? Shin Xiaoyuan choked. She was selected for the movie through her own audition. Gu Jingze's movies weren't easy to enter. If her image, acting skills, and target audience weren't right, she wouldn't have been chosen. There were many other suitable competitors too, but she was lucky to arrive first and catch the director's eye. It was not easy for her to land the role. How could she give it up? The reality show was for the movie. If she didn't take part in the reality show, how could she film for the movie? She glared at Lin Che and stood up angrily. Her face scrunched up as she forcefully scoffed at Lin Che. Fine. Just you wait and see, Lin Che. She opened the door and stomped out. Yang Lingxin looked at the situation and then at Lin Che. Sister Che. Lin Che took a deep breath and said to Yang Lingxin, it's fine. She was definitely not going to leave. You go on ahead, I'm going to start filming. Yang Lingxin said, isn't it bad to offend her? She has such a huge entourage. I'm afraid that she might sabotage you. She looks like she's extremely capable of such things. Lin Che said, never mind. There's always a solution to a problem. Yang Lingxin asked in puzzlement, Sister Che, President Gu is so rich and dotes on you so much. Why don't you just quit? You still have to subject yourself to such bullying. Lin Che replied, dote on me? At which part do you think that he dotes on me? We're good now, but it's not what you think. Of course, President Gu is so good to you. Yes, he's good to me. However, a woman must have her own career. Who knows what's going to happen in the future, right? You can't pin all your hopes on a man, do you understand? Chapter 279, Most Gorgeous Uniformed Beauty. Yang Lingxin said, Sister Che, you're so capable. If I had a husband as good as Gu Jingze, I wouldn't think about anything else. That's not true. When you have a husband like Gu Jingze, you'll think of more things, silly. The reality show soon started. Li Junyi and the other guys not from the movie were already waiting outside. In comparison, the guys were much more harmonious. Everyone was laughing and getting along, talking as they looked at the young girls surrounding them. Shortly after, Shin Xiaoyuan walked out. The reality show requested everyone to wear the school uniform and the fall uniform was bigger. People always complained that C-Nation's school uniforms were hideous, but they didn't look ugly at all on these highly valued celebrities. In fact, the celebrities seemed to glow in the uniforms. Shin Xiaoyuan's school uniform was blue with a white horizontal stripe. She looked extremely beautiful and all the young boys and girls outside were amazed. Li Junyi and the group also looked at her. They quickly greeted her politely and complimented her, making Shin Xiaoyuan feel so happy that she couldn't hide her feelings on her face. Shin Xiaoyuan specifically tied her hair into 2 pigtails, making her look much younger. She touched her flawless face. She recently spent a lot of money to secretly go overseas and get her face done. Now, her face was not any less inferior than the faces of the high school students around her. It was good to be rich. One needed money to stay young. Just then, Li Junyi announced from behind, "Lin Che is here." A few of them looked up and saw Lin Che dressed in the same uniform as Shin Xiaoyuan. Her thin body in the broad uniform made her look even younger. Her ponytail swung left and right. She looked so youthful, like a descending ray of sunshine. She only had a thin layer of sunscreen on her face, while Shin Xiaoyuan wore thick makeup. Her face was like a de-shelled egg that was so full of collagen. Her refreshing smile revealed 2 rows of perfectly white teeth. It looked extremely pleasant against her red lips. She didn't put on any makeup at all. In comparison, Shin Xiaoyuan put on makeup intentionally. It looked simple, but she put plenty of effort into making it look extra natural. Lin Che smiled as she walked over. Her beautiful eyes narrowed enchantingly. Her petite face and slender neck looked particularly skinny in the large uniform. She looked so gorgeous that nobody could take their eyes off her. The guys looked at her as their eyes exposed what was in their minds. One by one, they thought that she was extremely pretty. In this entertainment industry with plenty of photogenic people, her beauty was absolutely unique. Shin Xiaoyuan's face instantly fell. She turned back to see that the people were no longer looking at her. There was another small actor who was less famous beside her, but their eyes were glued to Lin Che. She cursed internally, "Damn it. What a vixen, she was really crafty." Everyone usually dressed differently, so it was hard to differentiate their beauty. Now that the different faces were in the same uniform, Lin Che's uniqueness stood out more. On that day, the reporting media who followed the show revealed that day's filming details. In the video, tons of fans crowded outside the school. Inside the school, people were even more excited due to the presence of the stars. In the video, Lin Che and the other female stars' uniforms were exposed. The internet was filled with praise and there were comments saying that Lin Che looked exactly like a high school student in that uniform. They said that she would absolutely kill any other hot girls in youthful school uniforms. Such a beautiful girl must have been the school belle during her school days. However, only Lin Che knew that she wasn't some school belle when she was in high school. She was poor and didn't have time to groom herself. Thus, she couldn't compare to those wealthy girls who were chauffeured daily like Lin Li. She was quite an invisible student. So when Lin Li saw the report, she wanted to flip her belongings in anger. She thought, what school belle? She was more like a joke. Lin Che looked so lively on TV while it was a mess at home. Han Kaiang was forced to go away while neighbors in the streets pointed at and gossiped about them. She felt extremely unjustified. While filming in school, it was extremely noisy and lively. It was finally time for lunch. Lin Che, Li Junyi, and another young girl walked in. The students immediately circled them and exclaimed, "Lin Che, can I have your autograph?" "Lin Che, is this seat taken?" "Lin Che, what do you want to eat? We'll make sure you get it." Someone saw Lin Che sit beside them and immediately spoke excitedly, "Lin Che. Wow, I finally get to see you in person, Lin Che. You're so pretty. I'd like to take a picture with you, can I?" Lin Che laughed and said, okay. Let me check if my hair is in a mess. I haven't touched up the whole day." Seeing Lin Che taking pictures with a student, the other students behind went crazy and immediately surrounded her. Meanwhile, Shin Xiaoyuan walked in from the other side and looked across in disdain. However, she pretended to be warm. Behind the cameraman, she had many assistants who did not let any students get close to her. Seeing Lin Che sit there, she walked straight towards her and snatched Lin Che's seat. Lin Che looked up at Shin Xiaoyuan. There were many people. She sat down and started eating with her own cutlery, scoffing at the same time. She spoke to her assistant, "It's so crowded everywhere. Seriously, at least we're used to it, unlike some small celebrities. Some of them can't contain themselves the moment they meet people who like them." The assistant said, "Exactly, Sister Xiaoyuan. You'd better eat fast. These were all brought in from Zhuangji restaurant outside and are much better than those dirty dishes in the canteen." Lin Che gritted her teeth and ignored her. Shin Xiaoyuan grunted. She looked in Lin Che's direction and said, "This kind of petty person has no right to put on airs. She just relies on Gu Jingz's benefits. In my eyes, I don't care about such a person at all, humph." After an entire day of filming, Lin Che was dead tired. At night, she laid down on her bed in the dormitory. Another small actor came to befriend her. She had just finished filming some supporting roles and was still young. She had been trying to befriend Shin Xiaoyuan for the day and she did not want to miss out on Lin Che this time. She also tirelessly praised Lin Che, saying that her complexion was great. Shin Xiaoyuan entered and scoffed. She put the basin on the table unceremoniously and said, "Yeah, your complexion is quite pretty. Where did you get it done?" Lin Che glared at her. Just then, her phone rang. She took a glance and saw that it was Gu Jingze. Although she was tired, she immediately jumped up and ran out to answer the call. Shin Xiaoyuan grunted and said impolitely, "Nobody wants to listen to your conversation. There's no need to be so secretive for you to run out." Chapter 280. Hard to resist her. The young lady at the side watched her leave and said, "Don't tell me that's Gu Jingyu. People always say that they're together." Shin Xiaoyuan laughed, "Forget it. With Gu Jingyu's status, would he find a small fry? Have you ever thought of why Gu Jingyu never had a single rumor over the years? You may think that it's because he doesn't want any, but everyone says that it's because he's a Gu. Do you know what kind of family the Gu family is? He needs to have someone with proper upbringing and whatnot instead of her. Take these rumors with a pinch of salt. Judging by her standards, she would be lucky if she found a rich guy to settle down with after becoming famous." Shin Xiaoyuan refused to believe that she and Gu Jingyu had anything going on. It was just awkward for them. However, she was really curious about why Lin Che ran out as soon as she received some call. Outside, Lin Che held her phone and listened to Gu Jingze's question, "Was it smooth today?" "Yes, it was fine. What are you doing?" Lin Che asked as she leaned against the wall. "I'm working." "Ah, at this time?" "Yeah, I'm waiting for an overseas video conference." She could tell that he must have been in his office. It sounded empty on his side and his voice echoed. Lin Che could picture him sitting in his office, one hand holding his phone while the other typed away on the keyboard. He looked focused and his eyes were relaxed. She saw that image countless times, but when she imagined it so clearly across the telephone line, she thought that he was very handsome. Lin Che asked to the phone, "Aren't you very busy then? Don't call me anymore. Go to your work. Sleep earlier and don't work when it gets really late." Gu Jingze replied, "It's no problem. I won't be busy for a while. How was it today? Was it tiring?" "I'm alright." "Is the reality show fun?" "Yeah, it's quite interesting. The school looks great too. Actually, it was rather tiring." As she spoke, she coughed and her throat felt itchy. It was rather windy along the corridor, so she must have been affected by the wind. He immediately heard the cough. "Why are you coughing?" "It's nothing. I'm in the corridor so it might be the wind. I'm going in then." "Alright, go ahead." "Okay, you sleep earlier too," Lin Che repeated. "Don't stay up too late. Just take care of yourself. You don't know anything outside." "I'm not a silly little kid. Of course, I know how to take care of myself. Alright, I'm hanging up." Lin Che immediately hung up. She held her phone and coughed again. She went to prepare some water to soothe her throat. She had been yelling the entire day and her throat was extremely uncomfortable. At night, Shin Xiaoyuan tossed and turned in her bed, continuously complaining that the bed was too hard and that the dormitory smelled. She complained to her assistant over the phone. She had a villa, a Simmons bed, and everything she needed at home. Why was she here suffering? Lin Che thought that she caught a cold. She quickly called Sister Yu, who quickly let Yang Lingxin with some cold medicine over so it would not affect the filming. Yang Lingxin quickly reached and gave Lin Che the medicine along the corridor. But before Lin Che took the medicine, her phone rang once again. When she picked up her phone and saw the screen, her eyes lit up. It was Gu Jingze again. She quickly answered the call. "Gu Jingze, you haven't slept. Come out." "What? I'm letting you come out of your dormitory. Or do you want me to go up?" "Ah, you're here." Lin Che didn't expect him to come. She hurriedly said, "Okay, I'm coming out now. But why are you here?" Gu Jingze only plainly said, "Just come out. Hurry up, you're so slow." Lin Che hastily agreed and hung up. Beside her, Yang Lingxin looked at Lin Che in surprise. "Sister Che, who is it on the phone?" Lin Che smiled and said, "I think that Gu Jingze is here. I'll go take a look." Lin Che's face was obviously happy. Although she didn't know what he needed or why he suddenly came, she couldn't help but smile at the thought of him coming to the school at this hour. Yang Lingxin's eyes halted. She stood there as she watched Lin Che happily glance back at her before running out. Yang Lingxin's mouth twitched as she continued to stare in that direction. Why was she so blissful? Just because she met Gu Jingze, she became the recipient of all his affection. Lin Che ran out and headed downstairs. She saw Gu Jingze's car outside. She jumped a few steps down. Gu Jingze opened the door and stepped out. He looked up at Lin Che. "Slow down, what's the hurry?" He frowned. Lin Che looked at the car behind. "No cars are allowed in the school." "How did you? And this is the girls' dormitory. No guy is allowed in here, you." Gu Jingze pulled Lin Che and touched her forehead with one hand. "No fever." Lin Che rolled her eyes at him. "Of course there's no fever." "But you coughed. Here's some medicine, take it." "Ah." Lin Che looked speechlessly at Gu Jingze. "How did you know that I caught a cold?" Gu Jingze passed the cup of water to her, open wide. Lin Che instinctively opened her mouth. After she took the medicine, she looked at Gu Jingze. "Did you come here to give me medicine?" Lin Che looked at him. Although he remained silent as he put down the cup, Lin Che's heart was filled with warmth. Gu Jingze looked at her and quickly took off his coat. He reached out, opened the coat, and put it over her. Lin Che cautiously looked around and realized that all the people around were long gone. There were only his men standing in a row behind. Lin Che said, "How did so many of you get in here?" Gu Jingze said, "By car." Lin Che thought, that was right. He was Gu Jingze and if he wanted to come in, nobody could dare to stop him. Gu Jingze looked at his sides and let his men retreat. He looked at Lin Che's thin body and put an arm over her shoulders, bringing her into his embrace. "What a cold body." He frowned and asked, "Why didn't you put on something when you came out?" They were right in front of a school dormitory. Lin Che quickly exclaimed and pushed against his chest, "Let go, let go. We can't do this here. What are you doing?" But Gu Jingze did not budge. Pushing him was useless. Lin Che panicked and frowned as she looked up at his face. He gazed at her petite head and said, "Stop moving." "No, we can't do this here, Gu Jingze." Gu Jingze frowned and looked at her unhappily. He appeared a little impatient. "I said stop moving." But before she could say anything else, he bent down to kiss her. Lin Che's mouth was engulfed by his. She felt her lips get pried slightly open as he bit and teased them. What a disobedient woman. Why should she resist him? Who else would he punish if not her? Gu Jingze's kiss was heavy and anxious. He repeatedly attacked Lin Che's soul. She really tasted too sweet. His lips unknowingly began to apply more force as if he was going to suck her entire being into his body. He had tasted her countless times but he still couldn't resist her body.